You've been in that room before. The air feels thick, almost suffocating. Everyone's eyes glued to their phones or pretending to be deeply interested in something across the room. You walk in, and there's that split second where you think, maybe, just maybe, someone will acknowledge you. A nod, a smile, anything. But nothing comes. You sit down. You try to join the conversation. You laugh at the jokes, even though they're not that funny. You nod, enthusiastically, when someone makes a point, desperately hoping they'll see you as part of the group. And then it happens. You say something. You put yourself out there. You contribute an idea. You make what you think is a valid point. Silence, not even a glance in your direction. But then, maybe 5 minutes later, someone else says almost the exact same thing you just said, and suddenly the room lights up. Everyone's nodding, everyone's agreeing, calling it brilliant, innovative, exactly what we needed to hear. And you sit there, your stomach twisting into knots, that familiar burn of humiliation creeping up your throat. You want to scream, "I just said that," but you don't. You never do, because somewhere deep inside, you've learned that speaking up about being ignored only makes you look more desperate, more needy, more invisible. So you smile. You pretend it doesn't matter. You tell yourself, maybe they didn't hear you. Maybe you didn't say it clearly enough. Maybe you're just being too sensitive. But you know the truth. They heard you. They just didn't think you mattered enough to acknowledge. And that realization, that gut-wrenching understanding that your presence holds no weight in their world, it cuts deeper than any insult ever could. If you know this feeling, if you've spent years wondering why you seem to disappear in rooms full of people, if you're tired of watching others get credit for your ideas while you fade into the background, then stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will fundamentally change how you understand human nature and your place within it. Here's what nobody wants to tell you about human nature. It's not fair, it's not kind, and it sure as hell doesn't reward you for playing nice. This is the raw truth that philosophers have been dancing around for centuries, from Machiavelli observing the courts of Renaissance Italy to modern evolutionary psychologists studying primate hierarchies. Humans are social animals, yes, but we're also deeply, primitively wired to assess value and status in every single interaction. When you walk into a room, people aren't consciously thinking about where you rank, but their ancient brain, the part that kept our ancestors alive on the savannah, is running a constant calculation. Is this person a threat? Are they valuable? Do they have resources I need? Can I safely ignore them? And here's the brutal part. When you show up seeking validation, when your energy screams, "Please see me, please acknowledge me, please tell me I matter," you've already answered those questions for them. You've told their primitive brain that you're low status, that you're dependent on their approval, that you can be safely dismissed because you're not a threat, and you're certainly not someone who holds power. This isn't about being mean or judgmental. This is about survival mechanisms that are hardwired into human DNA. Throughout history, the individuals who thrived weren't the ones who blended into the group and hoped for scraps of recognition. They were the ones who carved out their own path, who built value independently, who showed up complete and self-sufficient, not asking for permission to exist. Let me be crystal clear about the problem here, because I need you to really see it, to feel it in your bones. You've been conditioned, probably since childhood, to believe that belonging comes from fitting in, from being liked, from making yourself useful to others. Your parents wanted you to play nice, share your toys, make friends. Your teachers rewarded you for being cooperative, for raising your hand politely, for not causing trouble. Society tells you that being part of a community means sacrificing your individual needs for the group's benefit. Because when you show up to any social situation with the underlying belief that you need to earn your place there, you emit a frequency that others pick up on instantly. It's in the way you hold your body, slightly hunched, taking up less space than you deserve. It's in your voice, a little too eager, a little too accommodating, always ready to agree or laugh at their jokes. It's in your eyes, searching for approval, for confirmation that you did good, that they accept you. And humans, with their brutal honesty in the realm of unconscious communication, respond to that energy with exactly what it deserves: indifference. They don't consciously think, let me ignore this person. They simply don't register you as someone worthy of their limited attention and energy. You've become background noise in your own life. The person who's always there but never really seen, who contributes but never gets credited, who tries so hard but somehow always ends up on the outside looking in. Before I go any further, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself about this. How many times have you walked away from a social situation, whether it was a work meeting, a party, a family gathering, or even just a casual conversation with friends, and felt completely drained? Not just tired, but empty, like someone reached inside your chest and squeezed all the life out of you. You gave so much energy trying to be interesting, trying to be funny, trying to be valuable, trying to make them like you, and you got almost nothing back. You came home, collapsed on your couch, and replayed every moment in your head, analyzing every word you said, every reaction you got, wondering why it always feels like you're working 3 times as hard as everyone else just to get a fraction of the recognition. If this is your reality, if you know exactly what I'm talking about, I want you to leave a comment right now. Just write, "I'm exhausted from performing." That's all. 3 words. Because when you type those words, when you admit that to yourself and to this community, something shifts. You stop pretending that everything's fine. You stop gaslighting yourself into believing that you're just introverted, or that people are busy, or that it's all in your head. You acknowledge the truth. You've been performing for an audience that doesn't even know you're on stage. And when you see hundreds of other people commenting the same thing, when you realize you're not the only one who feels this way, that exhausting performance starts to lose its grip on you. You begin to understand that the problem isn't that you're not good enough at performing. The problem is that you're performing at all. So go ahead, drop that comment, "I'm exhausted from performing," and let's start this shift together. Because your comment isn't just for you, it's for every person who's going to scroll through here later today, feeling alone in this exact struggle, and they're going to see your words and think, "Oh my God, me too." And that's when the real change begins. Now let me show you the way out of this prison you've built for yourself. And I promise you it's simpler than you think, but it requires you to fundamentally rewire how you approach human interaction. The solution isn't to try harder, to be more charming, to develop better social skills, to read more books on how to win friends and influence people. The solution is to stop seeking. Stop seeking their approval. Stop seeking their validation. Stop seeking their acknowledgement. Stop performing for their attention. Because here's what happens when you stop seeking. You start existing. And existing, truly existing in your own power without apology or explanation, is the most magnetic thing a human being can do. This isn't about becoming cold or distant or arrogant. This is about recognizing a fundamental truth of human nature. People are attracted to completeness. They gravitate toward individuals who don't need them. Think about the people in your life who command respect without demanding it, who walk into a room and somehow everyone notices even though they're not trying to be noticed. What do they all have in common? They're not scanning the room for approval. They're not adjusting their behavior based on who's watching. They're not desperately hoping someone will validate their existence. They simply are. They exist in their own right, complete and whole. And that completeness creates a gravitational pull that neediness can never replicate. Let me give you a concrete example of how this plays out in everyday life, because I know some of you are thinking this sounds good in theory, but how does it actually work? Imagine you're at a work meeting, the same scenario I described earlier. Old, you would walk in already feeling anxious, already worrying about whether people will listen to you, already preparing to fight for space in the conversation. You'd sit down, maybe make small talk, watch for openings to contribute, and when you finally speak up, your voice would carry that subtle undertone of seeking, that barely perceptible "please take me seriously" vibration, and people would respond accordingly, with indifference or worse. New you, the you who understands this principle, walks into that same meeting completely differently. You're not worried about whether they'll listen because, frankly, you don't need them to. You've got your own projects, your own vision, your own value that exists independently of their recognition. You sit down. You're present, but not performing. If you have something valuable to contribute, you say it once, clearly, without the desperate energy of needing them to validate it. If they ignore it, you don't spiral into self-doubt or try again louder. You simply note it and move on, because your self-worth isn't tied to their response. And here's the magic. About 5 minutes later, when someone else repeats your idea and everyone loves it, you don't feel that crushing humiliation anymore. You might even smile a little because you understand what's happening. They're finally catching up to what you already said. Their delayed recognition doesn't diminish your value. It just reveals their limitations. And sometimes, just sometimes, someone in that room who was actually paying attention will speak up and say, "I think that's what she said 5 minutes ago." And suddenly, you've got an advocate you didn't even ask for, because people respect those who don't desperately need respect. Now we need to go deeper into some advanced concepts about human nature that most people never learn because they're uncomfortable truths. There's a phenomenon in psychology called the paradox of pursuit, which states that the more you chase something, the further it moves away from you. This applies to respect, to attention, to belonging, to love, to everything humans desperately want from each other. When you pursue someone's approval, you are unconsciously communicating that they have something you lack, that they are above you in the hierarchy, that you are incomplete without their validation. And humans, being the status-conscious creatures we are, will instinctively position themselves above you in response to that signal. It's not malicious, it's just automatic. Your pursuit places them on a pedestal, and they'll naturally stand on that pedestal because it feels good to be elevated. But the moment you stop pursuing, the moment you withdraw that pedestal and stand on your own ground, the entire dynamic shifts. Suddenly, you're not below them anymore. You're beside them, or maybe even slightly above them, because you have something they don't: self-sufficiency. And self-sufficiency, in a world full of needy, seeking, desperate people, is like gold. It's rare, it's valuable, and it draws people in. This is why the people who seem to have the easiest time making friends, attracting partners, earning respect, are often the ones who appear to need it the least. They're not actually superior to you, they've just mastered the art of not seeking, and in not seeking, they've become magnetic. There's another concept we need to address, and this one might sting a little, but it's necessary. It's called the authenticity trap. You've probably been told your whole life to just be yourself, and people will like you for who you are. That's partially true, but it leaves out a critical component. People will like you for who you are only if who you are is someone complete, grounded, and self-possessed. If who you are is someone desperate for validation, someone who needs constant reassurance, someone who performs for scraps of attention, then being yourself is actually working against you. This is where the work comes in. You need to build a version of yourself that doesn't need external validation to feel whole. And I'm not talking about fake confidence or pretending you don't care when you actually do. I'm talking about genuine internal work to develop real self-worth that isn't dependent on whether other people see it. This means spending time alone and actually enjoying it, not just tolerating it until you can be around people again. This means pursuing interests and projects that fulfill you even if nobody ever knows about them. This means building skills and knowledge for your own satisfaction, not for resume points or social media likes. This means having standards for how you allow people to treat you and actually enforcing those standards, even when it means being alone. Because here's the truth. Being alone and self-sufficient is infinitely more powerful than being surrounded by people who don't really see you. Let's talk about practical implementation, because I know some of you are ready to make this shift, but you're not sure where to start. This isn't about flipping a switch and suddenly becoming a different person overnight. This is about small, consistent choices that accumulate into a fundamental change in how you show up in the world. Starting today, I want you to practice the pause. When you're about to speak in a group, pause for a second and check your energy. Are you speaking because you genuinely have something valuable to add? Or are you speaking because you want them to notice you? If it's the latter, don't speak. Save your words for when they carry real weight. When someone ignores something you said, pause before your instinct to repeat it louder or rephrase it. Let it sit there, unacknowledged. Notice how uncomfortable that feels, and then notice how that discomfort is just your ego wanting validation. Breathe through it and move on. When you're tempted to fill silence with nervous chatter, pause and let the silence exist. Comfortable silence is a sign of someone who doesn't need to perform. When you want to text someone who never initiates contact with you, pause and ask yourself why you're always the one reaching out. If the answer is because you need their validation, don't text. Let the connection fade if it's one-sided, because you're making space for relationships where your presence is actually valued. Here's your 7-day challenge, and I want you to take this seriously because it will change your life if you actually commit to it. For the next 7 days, I want you to practice strategic withdrawal. This doesn't mean ghosting everyone or becoming a hermit. This means consciously pulling back from seeking behaviors and watching what happens. Day 1 and 2, stop initiating contact with people who rarely or never initiate with you. Don't announce it. Don't make it dramatic. Just stop. See who reaches out when you're not doing all the work. Day 3 and 4, in group conversations, speak only when you have something genuinely valuable to say, not when you're trying to be noticed. Say it once, clearly, and if it's ignored, let it go without emotional reaction. Day 5 and 6, spend at least 2 hours each day completely alone, doing something you enjoy without sharing it on social media or telling anyone about it. Build your capacity to be fulfilled without external validation. Day 7, review the week and notice what's changed. Notice who actually values your presence versus who only engaged with you when you were seeking them. Notice how much more energy you have when you're not constantly performing. Notice the subtle shift in how people respond to you when you're no longer emanating desperation. This 1-week challenge will teach you more about human nature and your place in it than years of trying to be liked ever could. If you made it this far, it's because something in this message resonated with you on a deep level. And I want you to know that I see you. I see the years you've spent trying to be enough for people who were never going to value you. I see the exhaustion of performing, of hoping, of being disappointed over and over again. I see the pain of being invisible in a world that seems to celebrate everyone but you. And I'm here to tell you that pain doesn't have to be your reality anymore. You're not broken. You're not defective. You're not fundamentally unlikable. You've just been playing a game with rules that were designed to keep you small. But here's the beautiful truth. You can stop playing that game anytime you want. You can choose right now to stop seeking approval from people who don't appreciate you. You can choose to build your worth from the inside out instead of hoping someone else will hand it to you. You can choose to walk away from one-sided relationships and make space for people who actually see your value. And I know that's terrifying because it might mean being alone for a while. But I promise you, being alone and whole is infinitely better than being surrounded by people and still feeling empty. Now, if you want to continue this journey with me, if you want to keep learning about the raw realities of human nature and how to navigate them with power and dignity, hit that subscribe button right now. Every week, I release content that goes deep into these uncomfortable truths, giving you practical strategies to reclaim your power in a world that wants you to stay small. This isn't about becoming someone you're not. This is about peeling away all the layers of conditioning and people-pleasing to reveal who you've always been underneath. Someone complete, someone powerful, someone who doesn't need permission to exist. So subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos. And if this message helped you see something clearly for the first time, leave a like so more people who need to hear this can find it. I'll see you in the next video. And remember, you don't need them to see you for you to be worthy of being seen.